Hi, I'm Nat.
And I'm Guy, and we're talking Meghan Markle today. She's refusing to wear a poppy, just like the Canadian government was banning the poppies. So woke has their eyes on the poppies, I guess. But also Epstein. Epstein's coming back in the news pretty big. I'm going to get on Trump's case about this. A lot of people are disappointed in Trump and the Epstein files. Big news today coming out on that, I guess.
Yes. And first of all, do you want to explain what the poppies are and what they're for?
Oh, why you did a better job than I did last time.
Well, it's for people wear them in Canada and the UK. It's not so much a thing in the US, is it? You lived there. I've never lived in the US.
But Canada and the UK, it is big. Meghan Markle is originally from the US, but her husband's from the UK, and they lived in Canada for quite a while.
He was the prince of the UK.
They know what the poppy is. Her husband actually was wearing the poppy. She's saying she couldn't get one. It's very strange that she can't get one, and show gratitude to the men and women that fought on her behalf in World War II.
Yes.
Her husband was wearing it. Her husband has the right idea, even though I don't necessarily like her husband. At least he's putting an effort in here. Let's get right into the story, though.
Yes, so from the Standard, Meghan Markle claims she didn't wear a poppy on Remembrance weekend because they're not widely available, even though Harry was wearing one. And usually for people in the UK and royalty and people that are, fancy, they have poppies that are made out of gold or rubies or something else, but it's a pin you wear. And you usually have one available 360 and you wear it for
Why don't you
Remembrance
just go down
Day.
to the picture and let the people kind of see?
If I can. Hold on. There's a bunch of things popping up. So Meghan Markle faced backlash after attending Kris Jenner's 70th birthday without wearing a poppy while Prince Harry did. Sources said poppies are not widely available in the US, though Meghan has worn one at past Remembrance events.
Yeah, the poppy's actually becoming a political issue. They're starting to ban it in Canada. It's coming up as an issue for the woke that we shouldn't be remembering World War II. This was a bad thing. So... do you have the picture of them?
No, there's no picture of them in this article. Do you want me to find one?
Oh yeah, because I had the picture. That's the previous picture, but there is actually a picture of her and Prince Harry together. She obviously didn't have the poppy. He obviously did. If it was so hard to get, why was he wearing it and she wasn't? Yeah.
I'm getting down to the picture. Hold on. Oh, it's not showing me anything.
Okay, I guess we can just leave it since we couldn't find it. Okay. Yeah, that was the picture there. So yeah, she should have came up with a better.
And he was wearing one of those that are paper ones, and like the ones that you usually can get anywhere at schools, and you give usually a small donation that goes to veterans associations in Canada and the UK, and you just wear it, put it on whatever you're wearing, and change it with your outfits. But
yeah, there's actually big backlash with the Canadian people. The fact that the government was banning it in courtrooms. This is a beloved symbol in the UK and Canada, but it's also a symbol of patriotism. Much like the Raise the Flag campaign that happened in the UK, where people were raising the UK flags, showing pride in the country. The government didn't necessarily like that. They think patriotism is a bad thing. They want more immigrants, more immigration. They think this is an anti-immigration symbol.
yes.
Okay, and we can go to the next story if you want. I just kind of wanted to lead it off because I wanted somebody recognizable on the cover, and it was a political story.
And Meghan Markle is our usual piñata, and she hadn't really done much, so we hadn't really spoken about her.
Well,
but I used to speak about her pretty frequently because
supposedly she's got a new role coming up, so she's trying to go back into acting after I think it's almost a decade now.
Yeah.
I'm not looking forward to it whatsoever, but.
Well, we're obviously not going to watch it. But moving on to the Epstein files. And Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell's secret deal for freedom sparks fury as Trump accused of Epstein cover-up. And this has been going back and forth, and there's been a lot of promises made and very few delivered upon.
Yeah, if they had anything on Trump, they would have used it before the election because this was absolutely huge before the election. Sorry. Did he have an acquaintance with Epstein? Yes. He had actually a long acquaintance with Epstein. I don't think he was in the files in any way, shape, or form. Otherwise, they would have released it before the election to kind of rig that election, and they didn't. People still want him to release the files. This is one of the big disappointments of the Trump administration, and he continues to cover it up and not release it. They have the files. I think there was 300,000 emails sent to the DNC. They now have that, and they're releasing these in troves. So this is not going to look good for Trump if the Democrats can pick and choose what emails they're going to release. Just release everything. That's kind of what we want. We do have a clip in a minute of RFK kind of addressing this, because he was on the plane twice. With his wife and kids, though, and he addressed it. He was open about it, and people aren't holding it against him. He had the right take on it. Trump should have followed his lead, but instead of doing that, Trump said he would release all the files. Then he's playing footsie. Then he's saying, I released them, and then people are saying, well, they're not released. And now there's rumors that Ghislaine Maxwell is going to walk free. This is kind of crazy.
So a senior Democrat has accused Donald Trump of orchestrating a quid pro quo with Ghislaine Maxwell, alleging that she provided closed-door testimony exonerating the president in the Jeffrey Epstein case in exchange for her freedom. Maxwell is preparing a commutation application for approval by the Trump administration.
Okay, yeah, and I remember when this came up just before the election, I was saying I actually didn't have a problem with giving her immunity if she had more than just testimony. She had to have the entire treasure trove of videos and files and everything else to corroborate her testimony. Otherwise, she can just make up her testimony for freedom. We need actual prosecutions on these. Her testimony alone is not hard evidence, and you're not going to really get a lot of prosecutions off these. So if she would have actually had secret files and videotapes, she could have cooperated with that. I actually had no problem, especially if we could take down some big names, politicians and things like this globally. But her testimony alone, that's extremely weak. She deserves absolutely nothing for that. The Trump administration now needs to get ahead of this and release all the files.
And from Shadow of Ezra, Democrats are now preparing to release a massive batch of new Epstein files as soon as today, totaling more than 23,000 documents. The White House is pushing back, accusing Democrats of selectively leaking emails to create a false narrative about President Trump, but then just release them all. Get rid of the narrative. The White House also believes the unredacted victim mentioned in the emails is Virginia Giuffre, who was also...
That was the correction. It was 23,000 emails, not 300,000. Another story had 300,000 in it, but 23,000 emails is a ton of emails. If it makes the Democrats look bad, I'm sure those emails aren't going to get released, and they're going to release the ones they want. They're going to have complete control of the narrative over this.
And it also seems that, again, the name that they redacted was Virginia Giuffre, who was one of the most outspoken victims of Jeffrey Epstein. And unfortunately, she ended her life, or someone ended it for her, but she had exonerated Trump before and mentioned that she had never met with him or had been involved with President Trump.
Congressman, when did you get this information?
We actually just received all of these emails, a total of about 23,000 documents, actually a few days ago. So last week, and we've been going through, our team, of course, through all of these very carefully over the last few days. We obviously released some today. We'll be releasing additional documents likely later today. The important thing here is that we know, and we've been demanding, that Donald Trump and the DOJ release the full Epstein files. In what's been released today, which obviously is some quite serious, I think, connections between what Donald Trump may have known. There's communication between Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, obviously making some claims about Donald Trump spending significant time, hours, with possibly one of the victims. There's also disturbing emails there about Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. The people can read for themselves. I think what's important right now is that we want to know why Donald Trump spent the entire campaign saying that he would release the files. And now that he's in the White House, there is a massive cover-up going on. The survivors deserve the truth.
Okay, yeah, and this is a Democrat trying to put pressure on him, but even MAGA, his side, I think this is a bipartisan issue. We want these files released. He ran on that. We were extremely disappointed on that. I kind of let it go, even though I was disappointed. I will bring it up when different articles come up, but right now there is going to be a tremendous amount of pressure put on the administration, and rightfully so. They need to release absolutely everything they have. How is it the Democrats have 23,000 pieces of evidence and Donald Trump's not able to release the majority of it?
But it's also interesting that during the Biden presidency and then during the campaign, first Biden, then Kamala, they were very strict on not wanting them to be released and them saying that it was a bunch of falsehoods. And now they seem to be going back because I think they see it as a good way of campaigning and trying to take down Trump and the Republicans.
Well, I think Trump probably uses this as leverage. I had said this before. These tariff deals, I think he was using a lot of intelligence against different governments and really applying pressure from every single angle, not just to get a good trade deal, but to get a favorable trade deal for the U.S. How he got all these trade deals around the world, I don't know, but he had to probably apply pressure from three-letter agencies. And if he had access to these files, I guarantee you he was using them in those tariff deals, probably making promises he wouldn't release it. If he made those promises, it's time to go back on those promises because the public is demanding this, and he's made kind of contradicting promises if that is the case, because he promised and ran to the American public he would release those files. Now is the time to release those, and it's time for the Trump administration to really go back to its base, go back to its election promises, America First promises it had. It's becoming very corporatist with Susie Wild yapping in Donald Trump's ear, having him have his loyalty more and more to corporate interests.
And as you mentioned, RFK Jr. did come out and speak about his time on the Epstein jet to Jesse Waters from Thomas Sowell quotes. You weren't ever on the Epstein jet, were you? And he just came out and said he was, but he thinks all the information should still be released.
And I suspect if Trump is in the files, he's in the files in a similar way RFK was in them. RFK got ahead of this and he kept the story the same all the way through. He was able to explain it, and then he was able to perform at his job and really weed out the deep state and do good work in the position he was in HHS. So nobody is pointing fingers at RFK anymore.
And initially, Trump had kind of done the same and said, yes, I knew him, but was never involved, etc. But now it seems more like they're trying to cover up either him or his administration, maybe because they're running scared.
You weren't ever on Jeffrey Epstein's jet, were you?
Turn around.
I was on Jeffrey Epstein's jet two times. I was on it in 1993, and I was on it and I went to Florida with my wife and two children to visit my mom over Easter. My wife had some kind of relationship with Ghislaine Maxwell, and they offered us a ride to Palm Beach. So I went then, and on another occasion, I flew again with my family, with I think 4 of my children, and Mary, my wife, to Rapid City, South Dakota, to go fossil hunting for a weekend. And but otherwise, I was never on his jet alone. I've been very open about this from the beginning. This was in '93, so it was 30 years ago. It was before anybody knew about Jeffrey Epstein's, his nefarious issues. And I agree with you that all of this information should be released. We should get real answers on what happened to Jeffrey Epstein and any of the high-level political people that he was involved with. All of that should be open to the public. It should be absolutely transparent. And, I don't see why any of those records would have any redactions in them. Why would we be hiding that from the American public?
Well, you might.
Yeah, and this was all coming out when he was making his run for presidency, and he had no problem telling the truth, explaining exactly what happened. Whether you believed him or you didn't believe him, his story stayed the same all the way through. And I don't think the American people held it against him, especially when he started doing really good work in the administration. Now, Israel's becoming a big issue within the Trump administration, and covering up these Epstein files is just going to add to that and add to that more. Epstein had major connections to Mossad. Many believe he was actually a Mossad agent as well as working for the U.S. government, so he was a double agent. Releasing those files could put more pressure and heat on Israel, and this may be one of the reasons Donald Trump does not want to release the files.
And then Representative from Charovas, Representative Thomas Massey says President Trump flipped on releasing the Epstein files for 2 key reasons, according to him. Again, conjecture. First, he claims Trump doesn't want to embarrass his rich and powerful friends who may be tied to Epstein for personal scandals. And second, he hints that some officials may have convinced Trump that he was protecting his friends when they were really protecting intelligence interests.
Yeah, and I have different ideas why he's not releasing the files, but it's obvious he's not releasing everything. So I shared my opinions. We'll see his opinions. And the best way to put all this to rest is just to release all the files. He's obviously made promises to certain people, or he has certain countries or friends he does not want to release them and reveal.
There's 2 reasons he's flipped. One, his rich and powerful friends who've donated to him, or go to his dinner parties. Like, he doesn't want to embarrass them. And and they may, in fact, not even be guilty of a crime. They may just be very embarrassed that they were having extramarital sex, with these women, for instance. So that's one thing. But I think there's also the intelligence aspect of this that goes even deeper. Maybe Trump is on one plane and he's thinking, I can't embarrass my friends. But there may be people in the administration who are career people who are thinking on another plane. They're like, well, let's convince Trump he's going to embarrass his friends, when in reality, what we're trying to do is protect our sources and methods, which may involve sex trafficking. Yeah. And we don't want to embarrass our partner, Israel, in this time when the popularity for their war or support for their war is at an all-time low. And now we're going to find out that their defense minister, Ehud Barak, met was documented with Jeffrey Epstein 36 times. Probably even while he was defense minister. He had previously been prime minister. I don't know that he knew Epstein during that period. I'm not sure how much of those dates overlap, but there are reasons that they want to protect them. There's reasons he's flipped. And I don't think his children or J.D. Vance or even Pam Bondi or Kash Patel were read into all that when they originally said all of this stuff should be released. I mean, if it's a hoax, what were those binders that Pam Bondi gave out? Was she just fueling a hoax?
Yeah, and that's the big issue. Trump had promised this and ran on this as a primary campaign promise to release these files. And then when he got into office, Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, the entire administration said they were releasing it. As a matter of fact, they said the next day they were going to release it. And all they released were files that had already been released and redacted. This is one of the big failures. And this is when things started really turning for Trump. So J.D. Vance and the good people in the administration, like RFK, like Tulsi Gabbard, like J.D. Vance, really need to start pushing him in the right direction. The wrong people have Trump's ear right now, and that's going to be Susie Wild. That's going to be
Susie Wild.
Susie Wild, Marco Rubio, some of his finance people that are telling him Russia and China's economy is on the verge of collapse when I don't think it's nowhere near that. He needs to get the right people in his ear, and those people really need to start boxing out the people that are giving him wrong information, making him make wrong decisions, and kind of abandoning the base or walking away from the base and not fulfilling promises, and really being more loyal to corporate interests, because corporate interests have more money and more influence.
And there are more and more voices speaking on I would guess, America First, MAGA, whatever. For example, Brett Cooper coming out and saying, for example, that the 50-year mortgage plan that he has now and that he's spoken about and that the administration has been touting is not a good idea. The 15-year car loans, all of those are just temporary band-aids and solutions to problems that could be fixed in a different way for the prosperity of Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and all the younger people that are now starting to turn towards the social democrats like Mamdani and the communist ideals that apparently make more sense now, the populist communism.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories today where it's going to kind of lead back to Trump and this rift that's going on within the conservative movement. They need to push him back in the right direction towards populists, towards what the people elected him for. Anytime I do talk crap on him on these Epstein files or anything else, it's because I want to push him in the right direction, his administration in the right direction. If he didn't win that election when it happened, the level of censorship in the world would have been global. Digital currency, digital ID would have already been implemented. We have a ton of stories about censorship today, and I can only imagine what would have happened if Trump wasn't in office. Trump is still that dam that is holding the water back, but if he continues to go in the wrong direction, he's going to lose the midterms. And if he loses those midterms, the Democrats are going to be able to freeze him out, point to him that he was a useless president, and then they're going to win 2028. And if they do that, they're going to make up for lost time, and we're going to see a global censorship and digital regime take his place. It's very important he starts making the right decisions so he can not only win the midterms, but he sits up, whether it's J.D. Vance or somebody else, to win the 2028 election.
And there are luckily examples where Trump has listened to the base, has listened to the concerns of the people and actually turned things around. For example, with the Jibby Jab and with the connections to Big Pharma and starting to acknowledge it and even putting RFK Jr. as the head of the HHS. So there is some hope, but if it continues to go down this path, in my opinion, if he continues to cozy up to Larry Ellison and even Elon Musk, the whole digital ID future, the central bank digital currencies, and the censorship and power that could be given to the government of the United States, which was the one that was holding back the dam, could be irreparable.
Well,
because
I know
every other country is going in that direction.
Trump only has so many ways to get information. It's the people that are kind of around him. And the three names I named earlier with Marco Rubio, Susie Wild, those are the people that are really having his ear. I know JD Vance has good sources of information, like Robert Barnes, a constitutional attorney. And the MAGA base does have ways to get information to JD Vance. JD Vance really has to start using his position as vice president because it's the only position Trump can't fire somebody from. Now, I understand JD Vance is in a tough position because he doesn't want to end up like Ron DeSantis on the wrong side of Trump going into 2028. But somebody's going to have to steer Trump in the right direction here. And they have been steering him, like you said. And very recently, this 50-year mortgage came up, and we're going to have a story later on that Trump's already hearing that and said he's never agreed with that. So let's go into the next part of the story. And I think it's another wrinkle of Epstein here.
No. Speaking of the digital censorship and just the digital dominance that many countries are looking towards, especially Europe, well, now there's Germany is censoring one of its most popular parties, German bank, and we saw this happening in Canada as well during the truckers' convoy protests, which we were a part of. From Marianoff, while German banks freeze AfD accounts in escalating crackdown on dissent, multiple German banks are shutting down accounts linked to the AfD, now the country's largest opposition party, without explanation, citing banking secrecy. AfD leaders call it political debanking, a financial weapon to punish oppositions to illegal immigration and defense of traditional values.
Okay, and the AfD is a legitimate party in Germany. It's rising. It's a right-wing party, and they're absolutely fearful of this because populism is rising in Germany, in the EU. And the fact that they're able to debank their primary rivals and before digital currencies even in effect is shocking, and this should be a warning to all citizens of the EU to reject digital currency. They're currently trying to roll it out. They're in phase 1 right now. Next year it's going to be rolled out extremely heavy, and it's going to become mandatory in the EU. So you need to take lessons from the German government banning their opposition. Imagine what they're going to do to their citizens. Look what Canada did to their citizens during the trucker convoy.
And Marianoff continues, this isn't isolated. From Berlin to Dusseldorf, accounts are vanishing, including party donations and personal banking for elected officials. Behind it all, Germany's intelligence service labeled AfD far right for challenging gender ideology and open border policies, effectively criminalizing dissent. When democracy means freezing your opponent's bank accounts, maybe it's not democracy anymore. And in a lot of instances, both in Canada, here in Mexico, in Germany, in the European Union, they use this whole, oh, it's for democracy, we're saving democracy, by using, sorry for the word, but fascistic ways of trying to censor and control dissent to the point where it's no longer able to exist within the democratic society that they're trying to create.
Well, this has a huge impact on individuals to just live their life when they get debanked, but especially for political parties. There's going to be no way to fund campaigns, so you're only going to have really one voice. This is a way of censoring dissenting political voices within Germany.
And it's not just Germany. Marianoff, it says it's Europe. Europe built a democracy shield, again with that word democracy, digital Iron Dome for what they call truth. And again, truth in their eyes is very different to the actual real truth. The EU just went full cyber paladin. Brussels unveiled the European Democracy Shield. And that's what they called it, apparently a continent-wide defense grid designed to block disinformation, foreign meddling, and information warfare, basically a NATO for facts. The plan sets up a center for democratic resilience to target hybrid threats from regimes like Russia, and it's always the Russian regime, boost election security, and fortify the media against propaganda floods. It's a mix of cybersecurity, civic training, and political PR, all dressed in the language of resilience and values. Ursula von der Leyen framed it as protecting free speech, independent media, and institutions, but critics are already whispering that the EU's cure for fake news might look suspiciously like state-approved truth. And again, in many of these instances, it is what they deem as truth and what they think the truth is, instead of actually looking at the facts, like, for example, that there are only two sexes and two genders. There are no genders, it's just sexes. Europe's democracy shield could be a firewall or a filter. The difference will depend on who's holding the passport. The password, sorry, not the passport. And our dog is acting up again, so we're fixing that. So that is where the guy went, the producer guy, as I call him. If you have any questions or if you have any opinions about everything we talk about, specifically about where the world is turning regarding digital ID, digital currency, and the digitalization of democracy, and using that as an excuse, both democracy, but the fact that it's now going to be digital as well, and the freedom that the digital world did bring, and the democratization of media, for example, being able to talk about things outside of the norm of what usually traditional media was able to do, is now essentially being used for the complete opposite effect of trying to censor both dissent and opinion and anything that goes against what the plan has been for the longest time. The internet allowed all of this information to come out and a lot of people to give their opinions and give the actual truth and facts, but now it is being used exactly against those same people and targeted against those same people. We're trying to fix our dog, so I'm just seeing the guy just bouncing around trying to make the dog not eat everything we put in front of her. And now I lost my train of thought. But we can move on to the next point. Or do you have something you want to say?
Okay, I don't know what she... You can switch to the other camera. I don't know what she's going to do because I took both her dog beds. Yesterday,
You can put the gray one there.
she completely tore apart the other dog bed. No, she's trying to tear apart both of them now.
She gets angry at us.
Okay. What I was going to
I can fix it if you want to keep talking.
Okay.
Okay.
What I was going to talk about with the digital censorship or with this censorship bills that are coming out within the EU, this is going to be absolutely insane. They're colluding with big tech. I was watching a short video on this today, and what they're doing, the original legislation they passed, they said they were going to protect citizens' data, but now they want big tech companies to begin to censor. So what they're offering is complete access to their citizens' data. They went in and changed the law. So they're going to offer big tech all the data to train their AI system was with. And in response, big tech is going to be expected to censor and take down information that the EU government finds to be unsafe. And I think this is not going to just happen in the EU. I think they're going to start implementing this globally. It's going to be very hard to censor certain information from certain regions. It's much easier just to censor everything on a multiple country basis. Okay, and we're going to go into the CBC report if we can. Here comes Nat. She's coming back now. Okay, Nat, you're going to have to come back. Okay, sorry about that. The dog is just going crazy. Okay.
Well, sorry. There we go. You have to learn how to do this on your own.
I don't have access to the stories on my computer, so.
From Stefana Hernandez, and we did talk about this yesterday during the Guy's show. The TPUSA event that went on at Berkeley that had a bunch of protesters, most of them probably identifiable as Antifa, even though they have been designated a terrorist organization. Apparently, the Trump administration hasn't really done much other than now finally filing an investigation and giving an investigation to Berkeley to speak about the events and try to clarify why the police and why there was so little police and what was happening. But from Savannah Hernandez, here's a CBS reporter standing across the street from the mob calling to end TPUSA attendees and also making fun of Charlie Kirk's assassination, saying that last night's events were mostly peaceful. Conservatives getting punched in the face, smoke bombs being lit, and the violence is peaceful, per the media.
And we have to remember with the BLM protests, they were standing right in front of a fire saying these were mostly peaceful protests, and now they're using the same tactics, even though they've been relentlessly mocked in the past for this kind of behavior. This is unacceptable for mainstream media to say it's peaceful when right behind them there are violent protests. And we showed a lot of clips on yesterday's show about the level of violence, and it was pretty massive.
And especially because, again, TPUSA is the organization that was Charlie Kirk's, and Charlie Kirk got assassinated while speaking at campus.
Event. Our Amanda Harry is live on the scene there where protesters also showed up. We've already actually seen at least one fight break out. Amanda.
Yeah, things have been lively here. While that Turning Point USA event is still happening inside, protesters have been out here for hours. You can see them still here behind me. They have been chanting, just a very, very lively scene out here. While things have been mostly peaceful, there have been some tense moments. Earlier this evening, there was a scuffle that broke out where two men started fighting. UC Berkeley police had to break up that interaction. Later, someone was throwing smoke bombs and a car backfired, leading some of the people who were protesting to run away. The protest was put together by students organizing for liberation. Some students say they don't believe UC Berkeley should host a large Turning Point USA event like this one, but other people are happy to be here for the event.
Turning Point USA should not be here, and they are like a fascist organization, and nobody here agrees with what they are saying. And obviously Charlie Kirk has been a big issue with like a lot of college campuses and people on college campuses. So we just think like, I mean, obviously I didn't really follow him a lot, but knowing what he did and knowing the things that he was saying, it's just like vile and disgusting. So we don't.
What did he do?
Okay, and that being said, it's like there needs to be a dialogue between both sides. When liberal organizations come to conservative campuses, there aren't these violent protests to ban them from even speaking. Sorry about Nat talking there. While she was talking, that's when the reporter had actually said mostly peaceful protest.
Sorry.
Well, no, but that was the point of that story.
Okay. And it's not just at Berkeley that people are protesting, but also at COP30 in Brazil. There's been more and more protests, and they've been increasing in their, not violence, but in their how many
actually
people
in their violence. Okay. These are becoming huge protests. People are having baseball bats, batons, all kinds of weapons. We're gonna have a couple clips. I think the first clip's a lot less severe than the second one, but there is a real uprising happening at COP30 right now.
Also from Marinalfa, protesters with batons, some COP30 climate summit in Brazil. Armed demonstrators clashed with security at the UN conference in Belém, with at least one injury reported.
And we have to remember on the lead up to this, there were hundreds of deaths in Brazil kind of protesting COP30 before it even got there. They had thought they had quelled the uprising, and it looks like they have not. These people have completely taken over these locations. And I believe this clip was from earlier in the night, and the one we're going to play next is actually from a little later in the night. You can go to the next clip if you want.
Sure. Let me just prepare it. And COP30 is technically just politicians speaking about climate change and the climate and net zero goals, etc. But this is not a good look for them, clearly.
Well, no, it's not just about the climate. This is where they try to push this climate propaganda on third world countries that or second world countries or countries that it's going to really hurt their citizens and humanity in general to sacrifice at the altar of climate change and carbon credits. And basically, this is how you can smuggle in a social credit score. This is absolutely ridiculous. People want to stop putting humanity below the climate.
Yes, from Concerned Citizen, again, thousands of Brazilian protesters, some armed, stormed COP30 climate change conference, furious at all the world elites and their champagne socialism. And then his
And there was actually another clip with a machete that I meant to get that clip instead of that one there, but yeah.
the guy is the one that gathers the stories
And the clips.
and the clips. He does all the work, apparently.
Yeah. All you had to do is sit here and look pretty.
Yes, but then I also have to plan my whole Spanish show all by myself.
Okay, let's continue to go here. They don't want to hear us bicker.
From Camus, banks abandon net zero, the UN shifts to health, and Gates leads the charge. The climate jibby-jab merger is here, and we had spoken about how Bill Gates has kind of reversed his position even a little bit on the whole climate change is what's going to doom the world, because he, I think, sees where the current is shifting. But Bill Gates just quietly confirmed the pivot many suspected was coming. After years of pushing climate investment, he now says the real focus will shift towards the new jibby jabs and immunization. And that's what's happening, and what's happening around him. Every major signal suggests big business is following the same path. The Wall Street Journal reports major banks like JP Morgan, Citibank, and UBS are backing away from their net zero pledges. The Financial Times says companies by the hundreds are abandoning their climate targets altogether. The Net Zero Banking Alliance has suspended operations amid a wave of exits.
Yeah, and I think it's even more concerning that they're not trying to get rid of this this completely. They're trying to shift all the money they have in climate into vaccines and jibby jabs. This is even more dangerous because it violates bodily autonomy. And I mean, I have absolutely no trust because of what happened in the jibby jab era with governments infringing on people's freedom of choice when it comes to health rights.
And this is from the Jackson Report, the Highwire with Del Big.
I mean, if this is the case, you have to think every single country is going to implement socialized medicine, and then they're going to make you uphold your end of the bargain by getting every vaccine and everything else.
He's a businessman, so he's saying we're going to back off climate a little bit and throw everything into vaccines, immunization. So you could see this coming in the headlines in the months. He's actually late to the party here. So when you look at these headlines, you're seeing a massive back away by big business banks. You can see here, Wall Street Journal, Net Zero Banking Alliance suspends activities amid wave of departures. They're talking JP Morgan, Citibank, UBS. They're all ditching their green pledges. But then also businesses were supposed to they had a report they had to give and say, how are you going to help not warm the planet 1.5 degrees? We need your business plan. And these businesses all are ditching that as well.
And it's very good so far that we have accomplished enough to make them switch their focus. They're realizing this thing is not working. The veil has been kind of taken off, and the Wizard of Oz is standing there bare for the world to see. So now they're trying to shift. It's good that we really pay attention to what's happening at COP30, and we've seen they're trying to shift into this global health concerns, jibby jabs, things of this nature, because that is the next thing we kind of have to deconstruct and kind of lay bare the science behind that. A lot of people are already having science to contradict what they're saying, which is good overall.
The Financial Times, companies take step back from making climate target promises. By the hundreds, they're all taking a step back from here. So back to what Gates said initially. There is this massive, massive pool of money that's been built up really since the late 60s, since this narrative started. We're going to talk about that in a second. Yeah. But there's this massive climate funding. Where's this all going? He wants it to go to immunizations. And so does the entire culture. You're seeing this move. And this is the Lancet. Just from less than 2 months ago, the Lancet posted this. This is a paper. Climate change and pandemics, a call for action. Well, interesting. And they say in there, well, because of, clearly because of Wuhan and that was because of climate change, and we need to make sure that never happens again. So we're having this thing called COP30. This is the United Nations Climate Action Conference. That's coming up in November here, at the end of November. It's in Brazil. And this is now, the focus is immunization. It's not climate anymore. It's climate conference. But they're saying we need to put this all into health because the WHO and all of their pushes trying to make these plans for health are just getting stopped at every corner. Kennedy's stopping it. So they're moving this now. So we see they're adding this. Why yellow fever demands a seat at COP30's climate negotiations. And you go into this article, it says integrating health into the plans at the heart of the Paris Agreement, nationally determined contributions. Again, huge contributions. And unlocking climate finance for immunization campaigns and surveillance. That's what they want. And
that was the key there. I think it was immunization immunization and surveillance. You only need so much money for immunization. You need surveillance to make sure people can mandatorily take it. In their eyes, somebody that doesn't take a jibby jab, that's just completely unacceptable, especially in this new health regime they want to roll out. It's very important we stand up against these digital IDs and we stand up against these jibby jabs. It looks like they want to kind of roll out globally.
And now also, 2 years ago, we spoke about the WHO and their plans to make the signatories to their plans now agree to be able to be managed and controlled by the WHO if a pandemic came. And that actually passed, and nobody said anything about it. We reported on it when it actually passed, but that's still quietly happening in the background, and nobody is really making a big alarm or a big deal about it.
Well, there is one person making a big alarm, and that's RFK Jr. from the United States. And he has the CDC on board because he's kind of controlling that organization. He's forcing out studies they were trying to hide for years. And this is really putting a wrench in the WHO's plans. The U.S. is also not signing on to a lot of these agreements. There are a few other countries not signing on, but it looks like overall they're just going to try to wait Trump out, especially what happens in the midterms. The midterms are going to be so important. It's going to really signal if the Republicans have a chance in 2028. And if they don't, or they lose the midterms, this is going to signal to these liberal globalists that really almost took complete control and implemented their plan. They can just wait Trump out.
And Walker says, hello, Walker.
Oh, good to
How
see you,
are
Walker.
Says, hello, guys. Guy, did you watch the video from a British soldier that was kind of complaining about fighting in World War II?
Yeah, we actually played it on one of the shows. And yeah, it was...
but he was lamenting about the state of the world now. Walker is saying the one that was complaining about having to fight in World War II.
Well, we played one of them on the show, but when I was trying to select which one we were going to use for the show, I went through a bunch of them. It's a big thing going on right now that former veterans, especially from World War II, that are still alive, so they're very old at this point, are coming out and saying, we didn't fight for this. We didn't fight for unfettered immigration. We didn't fight for the values that these governments are now holding up against their citizens.
And we also used to talk about, for example, during the bad times of 2020 in Canada specifically, but I'm guessing in the US and Europe as well, how countries had treated their citizens, and then they were expecting them to sign up for the army and actually go fight for the country that had subjugated them to that extent and forced them to take an untested medical thing. I can't say the word. So why would anybody want to fight for that? But now retrospectively, why would anybody feel proud of having fought for a country that they no longer recognize and that they are no longer proud of and maybe not even want to be a part of? And now with the whole poppies and the veterans and Remembrance Day, them not being actually properly recognized or even financed, a lot of them are homeless living in the streets in Canada, at least. There's a big question about should they feel proud, and are they? I mean, they are not able, but they're justified in feeling that way, in my opinion.
The values that they fought for are not the values these countries are holding up. These countries are trying to get rid of nationalistic and traditional values and replace them for this homogenized one world government, one world religion. We see a lot of the upper echelons of these religions, whether it's Catholicism or Judaism or anything else, really trying to push all these religions together and homogenize. I would like to see the identity of each religion respected and keep their identity rather than being forced to erase their values, whether that's a government or a religious organization.
And also, meanwhile, in Australia, speaking of religion, because climate change has essentially become a religion as well, just because you don't understand the science, climate change, it doesn't mean it's not real. So let's see what she says.
Just because you don't understand the science doesn't mean it's not real. It just means that you're personally confused. So I do fail to see how adequate environmental reform can be done in conjunction with a party that is denying there is any sort of environmental issues. That's a great injustice to community. Just because you don't...
And they're trying to lay the groundwork to get rid of parties, just like the AFD we were talking about earlier. They're able to debank them. How can we negotiate with a party that just doesn't believe in basic truth and basic facts? Those facts are disputed. there is a huge cover-up to repress the science that kind of disputes those facts. But this is going to be the new generation of the left. They're going to try to put up a young hot chick or some kind of other thing rather than some old guy that looks like a supervillain to try to tell you that these people are absolutely insane and they shouldn't have a say in society. I mean, the supervillain monolith they were trying to do with the World Economic Forum was crazy. I guess this is going to be the new kind of supervillain they put up.
And speaking of also Mark Carney, who was one of the architects of the whole net zero thing, not just in the UK, but for the European Union and also Canada. Canada is the only one that seems to still be hanging on to that. And with the whole agenda that came with net zero and achieving carbon neutrality, etc., there was also a lot of money changing hands and going back and forth. But we also have a story from the UK from Wide Awake Media, a comprehensive demolition of the net zero agenda in under 90 seconds. And what has happened to progress, given now that there are these targets of net zero, which is essentially also impossible if you want to keep a society running at any point in time.
So net zero is stupid, and I'll double down on it, because we have the highest energy bills in Europe. We have manufacturing companies that are leaving. We've deindustrialized our Great Britain at the altar of net zero. You know what happens? Yes. Are you going to let me speak like I let you speak? Yeah. So we are importing solar panels from China, who has dirtier energy than we do, and repatriating it here. Thanks to net zero, we've outsourced our pollution, we've outsourced our growth, and we've outsourced our manufacturing. And that's what net zero has done to us. While China and India are ramping up coal production, ramping up fuel production, we're ramping it down, and we're becoming dependent on them for everything.
All right, well, listen, I'll tell you what, we do have net zero.
We've shut down our steelworks, we've closed our coal plants, we've taxed our industries out of existence. And your party, and call it progress, it's madness. We've offshored our emissions, we've offshored our jobs, and we've offshored our pride, all to meet a target that China couldn't care less about. And you can't call it green when all the steel and all the wind farms coming from China from blast furnaces. So, I mean, how can it be green when it's the dirtiest energy used in China and we ship it here? We don't need more targets. We don't need net zero. We need energy, industry, and self-respect. We need an abundance. And let's be honest, the only thing at risk is not the climate. With net zero, the only thing at risk is our economy.
Yeah, and the only way Europe is ever going to rebuild the economy is to rebuild their relationship with Russia. They need cheap energy from Russia to rebuild their manufacturing. Their manufacturing base has been completely hauled out. It's completely moved to the US because they need cheap energy for that manufacturing. They need to really repair that relationship with Russia rather than continuously ramping up this war.
Speaking of ramping up a war, we have been speaking about the U.S., the Donald Trump's and the U.S.'s plans with Venezuela and Mexico, if they're coming in, if they're going to do something about the security issues, let's just call them, and the organizations there. But from Agris Nexus, no nation does this unless it's mobilizing for war. It looks like the U.S. might preemptively strike Venezuela. This is the biggest military buildup since the Iraq War.
And
they have moved away from it as well.
No, they haven't. And I wanted to talk about this because I had thought they were moving away. They're really just moving assets from one region to another region, but still surrounding Venezuela. It's being reported that he was moving assets away, but it looks like he is just replacing those in other island regions that are very close and that can be called in within hours.
Over 13,000 U.S. Marines have now arrived near Venezuela, and what's happening in the Caribbean looks like the biggest military buildup since Iraq. Just off Venezuela's coast, Trinidad and Tobago has turned into a full-blown military zone. Meanwhile, the airspace above Puerto Rico has been completely shut down under national defense protocol. 2 U.S. aircraft carriers are already in position, and a third is racing in from the Caribbean. This could be one of the largest U.S. strike packages since World War II. Meanwhile, the U.S. officials are saying that there's no plan to attack Venezuela, but analysts are calling it the biggest military buildup since the Iraq War. In response, Venezuela has warned the United States that if an attack is launched, it will retaliate with its full strength. They deployed their Russian-made S-300V and BKM-2 air defense systems. Both nations are now on high alert, and tensions across the Caribbean are reaching a breaking point. Over 13,000...
Yeah, and what we have seen is Russia was flying in military weaponry, anti-air defense missiles, along with launching devices like they said there. We reported on that yesterday, but this thing is really amping up. I don't see it. I think he wants a negotiation with Maduro. He wants Maduro to step down. He almost had that at the end of his first administration. At this point, I don't think he can back down if Maduro doesn't step down. So I think he has this many military assets because if he does decide to strike, he doesn't want it to last 2 years like the Israeli war is lasting because the world would turn against you. He wants to go hard and heavy. Not like he did on Iran, but he did strategically bomb Iran. But he's going to want to strategically go into that country, bomb it, and then send special forces in there to specifically get Maduro. And whether they have to kidnap him or kill him, I think that's going to be the strategy. He has way too many military assets surrounding Venezuela right now, especially with other conflicts going on in the world that the United States is a part of. They're having to pull a lot of resources out of those regions to focus on Venezuela right now.
And
so something's going to happen.
And we have also spoken about this maybe being kind of like a dress rehearsal even for the plans with Mexico, but with Mexico hopefully cooperating because, as we have mentioned, and I keep saying in Spanish as well, it's not a good idea if the U.S. comes in barging into Mexico without the support or the organization with the Mexican government as well, because then both the military and the organized crime could turn against the United States and see the United States as a common enemy. And that would just ramp things up even further, which would not be good.
Well, now that you just said that, what I was thinking is maybe he will extend this thing with Venezuela and keep all those assets right there. Because what I didn't realize is if you keep all those assets surrounding Venezuela, what you're basically doing is surrounding Mexico as well. Mm-hmm. And if the government is privately cooperating behind the scenes with the U.S. government, they can't just have aircraft carriers sitting off of the coast right there saying we're not doing anything against the cartels, but now they have the excuse, oh, we're surrounding Venezuela, but maybe they're going after a lot of players in the region. We've seen the Colombian government recently speak up directly against Trump, trying to make a unified front with Venezuela, Mexico, Colombia, and Brazil. And maybe they're fighting a bigger overall, not only drug war, but war against these cartels. Kash Patel came out today and said they had completely stopped the flow of fentanyl into the United States. He said he did that through stopping the precursors with China. They worked with the Chinese government. They worked with the Mexican government. They're blowing up the drug boats.
Well, if they didn't work with the Canadian government, then they haven't really done much because the actual precursors are coming through the port of Vancouver. And that is also where a lot of these cartel members have set up shop since years ago and continue to receive those precursors coming in through the north.
Yeah, but even if he's saying he's doing all that, the flow of fentanyl is not going to completely stop. But this is an all-out assault on the region, whether it's Venezuela, Mexico, or other countries. And it's not only because of the drug war. They want to go after that power base, the people that are running the drugs, the cartels. They've already labeled them terrorist organizations. So I think this is a show of not just force, but saying they're not going to do it like we did the war on drugs back in the 80s. We're going after the power players.
Or the 2000s here in Mexico. But I do also think this is a move, and Trump understands, and the U.S. understands that Central and South America and Mexico are important for them to keep relationships with and to also kick out China from the region because China was doing a little bit too many favors to each country to be able to start also exploiting their natural resources and assets.
Well, I don't agree with the U.S. coming into Mexico militarily unless the Mexican government cooperates with them. But it's going to be very easy for Donald Trump to sell a war against Mexican cartels or Venezuelan cartels because it puts America first, because it directly influences them at their southern border. It's very hard to justify these endless foreign wars, whether it's in the Middle East or with Israel. The American first crowd, and we're seeing that split, would unite with the traditional base if the focus was on their southern border and cartels that are coming through there.
And Walker says, please be quiet. My favorite soap opera is about to start. Venezuela versus Trump. Nothing ever happens. And Walker also says, not to be rude, but let's hope the entire left doesn't start crying in the West, which is unlikely. Venezuela is crazy. It wants to fight a war with infantry.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting what happens. Trump is trying to get footholds within that region, within Argentina and El Salvador. I think Walker is from El Salvador. Mm-hmm. But man, you are really seeing Mexico, Colombia, and Venezuela have this united front, and you can throw Brazil in there as well.
However, in Mexico, Sheinbaum has been seen, and you can speculate that behind the scenes, she has been wanting to cooperate with the United States a bit more, even sending some cartel members to be judged in the United States and extraditing them from Mexico and then receiving some into Mexico because of the tariffs. But if the tariffs go away, as we have been talking about, and if we do need, if Trump does need to do something regarding the filibuster to be able to pass that through, if the Supreme Court actually denies Trump the tariffs.
What are you talking about? Tariffs, filibuster?
I'm saying that it is clear that Mexico has been cooperating more than, for example, Colombia or Venezuela with the United States regarding this whole war against cartels, because they have been doing some efforts to at least extradite some of the people, some of the cartel members to the United States, because, as we have been talking about for months, Sheinbaum, the Mexico's president, is interested in the whole tariff talk, and they have been able to pause the tariff talks for something to be done, something further to be done on Mexico's side. But as I was going to say, if Trump's tariffs if the Supreme Court does get rid of Trump's tariffs, then all those talks crumble, and then Mexico would be freer to not cooperate with the United States.
The entire tariffs with Mexico, the future of Mexico relies on that tariff deal. That being said, it looks like Sheinbaum is playing both sides. So it's going to be very interesting what kind of happens there.
Playing both sides and talking out of both sides of her mouth as well.
Yeah.
Walker also says the New York Times is crying its eyes out because some U.S. Navy planes are supposed to land at the second air bridge here in El Salvador.
Yeah, I mean...
and that also wouldn't be good.
There is quite a number of elections happening in South America. The Trump administration have been talking about these over the last few weeks. They have really implemented their power when it came to Argentina, doing the dollar trade for $20 billion. Now, the U.S. actually made money off of that, but that gives them more money to kind of invest in other South American countries to try to build allies, because right now, most of South America is far left and Central America.
And I forgot what I was going to say. Hold on.
Oh, yeah, we can go into the next story.
Well, it's the same story. The USS Gerald R. Ford, America's $8.4 million a day floating war machine, the most advanced aircraft carrier on Earth, just pulled into the Caribbean. And yes, it comes with F-35s, nukes, drones, and an $8.4 million daily price tag. It's 337 meters of pure intimidation, powered by 2 nuclear reactors, and one very expensive message: don't mess with us. Don't mess with us. It launches fighter jets using magnets, stores weapons with robot elevators, and needs over 4,000 crew to keep the whole beast humming. Nicknamed the most lethal ship ever built, it now parks just offshore of Venezuela, and suddenly 200,000 troops pop up on Maduro's lawn. Is it a coincidence?
I mean, and these are a lot of floating targets they're putting really close to Venezuela. They may just be waiting for Venezuela to actually strike one of these so they can justify a full-fledged invasion.
Well, this one I don't know if they could strike.
Huh? Oh, they could definitely.
It's ginormous.
Yeah, I don't know if you know about naval warfare, but aircraft carriers are really outdated as far as being floating targets right now, especially with drone warfare and a lot of other things that are coming up. They work, but they don't work when they're right off of your coast, kind of just sitting there waiting to be hit. So it's going to be very interesting what.
But isn't this a new one?
Yeah, it is. Even a new aircraft carrier is outdated technology. I don't know if you know where warfare is going, but it's going more into very cheap warfare like drones and things of this nature.
Well, that one's able to release drones. But I remember what I was going to say. That Walker put in my head and made me remember something that we wouldn't want happening, as we have been... What? Why are you laughing at me?
I could barely understand what you were saying just a minute ago. I think it's going to be another one of those rants.
It's not a rant.
Go ahead.
Something else that Walker reminded me of is we have seen this big support for Palestine from the left and from the social democrats and communists and Marxists in the United States, and also here in Mexico for some reason. But all over the world, the left has taken up Palestine as their, war drum. Before it was Ukraine, before it was the jibby jabs, etc. But I would be scared if they actually start supporting the bad organizations, similar to what Claudia Sheinbaum said recently, and we did play that clip, where she was saying, well, we don't want to go against their human rights. We don't want to chase them down because of their human rights. If the left takes up the mantle of the criminal organizations that have been destroying lives and countries. And we will have a march here in Mexico City this Saturday regarding the insecurity and the unsafety that we all feel and the frustration with the government. If the left in other places of the world decides to take up the mantle for the criminal organizations, that is not going to be, or and Antifa as well, decide to take up this mantle, that's not going, I mean, that's going to be a disaster.
Well, not even the criminal organizations. Now that you said that, it would be very easy for the left to make Venezuela their new little Palestine project and flow money and resources and manpower into that country and actually flow companies into that country. So yeah, we'll see what happens, I guess.
And Walker says, look up a video from Venezuela where soldiers are training by playing video games that supposedly involve controlling a drone. I mean, that is the manpower they have down there, even though, well, no, this was Colombia. In Colombia, Petro said that, oh, the Jaguar and the Eagle are going to wake up against the United States. Our military power, their military power is very weak, and it's not as, I mean, it's not comparable to the United States. However, the criminal organizations do have a pretty good handle on warfare.
Yeah,
which is the dangerous part.
I dramatically disagree with that. We can see what happened with Palestine, who has very, very little military compared to Israel, yet they've been able to defend themselves or continue this war for 2 years. Also in Ukraine, to just continue a war for years on end, turn Venezuela into a never-ending war. We've seen what happened in Afghanistan. It turned to a 20-year war, and it was never about winning the war. The Afghanis won the war just by slowly bleeding them dry. It cost trillions of dollars to keep a war going year after year. That one aircraft carrier was what, $8.4 million a day?
Yeah.
A day. So if they can just keep a guerrilla war going over and over and over, send people into the mountains, have people go to another country, then come back to form a resistance, it's very easy because there are so many leftist countries within Central and South America. It's going to be very hard to really stop a guerrilla war from happening in Venezuela unless you go in there hard, heavy, and take out the leader. And then they're going to have to replace it with obviously their peacekeeper. What was her name?
Who? Oh, Maria Corina Machado.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, the governmental structure of a lot of our Latin American countries are completely infiltrated and corrupt to the core from the beginning with these criminal organizations as well. So, I mean, the Trump administration has been revoking visas for a lot of governors and mayors of certain towns in Mexico that have ties to cartels, but it's at the highest levels of power as well in a lot of in all of these Latin American countries.
It's a bad idea for Trump to go into Venezuela. It can turn into a never-ending war. Put America first. Stay out of Venezuela. Stay out of these never-ending wars. That's what the American people want. That's what they really elected him for. So. Yeah, I don't know how he does that when he's having this much military buildup around the country, though, unless he can negotiate Maduro to step down. Then he's going to look like a genius.
But again, he might look like a genius if that happens, but it might also be, again, a dress rehearsal for what he wants to do here in Mexico, which, again, not a good idea.
Again, could turn into a never-ending war. Yes. Like, we've seen what's happening with Russia, and this is turning into years upon years of war. Now, Russia was well prepared for that, it kind of looks like at this point, but I don't know if the United States is quite as ready, although they could really ramp up their military production if they want to face a wider war. So start with that smaller war and then go against China maybe.
And a lot of those wars were also excuses for European specifically, but also American and Canadian, but Europe to take in asylum seekers from war. And now we're seeing the after effects of doing that. From Rebecca Mistergan, another Christmas market canceled in Germany, this time in Magdeburg. Authorities say they can't guarantee safety. Islamic terror attacks have done what no war could, ended a German tradition. Earlier markets in Overath and Kirpen were also called off due to new security requirements.
And we showed this video yesterday on my show, and it was just these Muslims going there with this huge protest, really making it
pro-Palestine people.
Pro-Palestine. Well, and immigrant protest as well, just coming into these markets, and now they're completely shutting down the markets. These vendors invested a lot of money here. This is hurting the economy. It's hurting the regular citizens. We're seeing all citizens of the globe don't necessarily integrate well. So you don't see the Christians in these countries really shutting down mosques and things like this in the same way they're shutting down these.
They should.
Okay, let's continue.
It's high time, but hold on. I need you to keep talking so I can set up the next clip.
Okay, what is the next
But now
one?
going on to the internal war in the United States between the conservatives and, I guess, MAGAs, or the rhinos and the MAGA and the America First people. Israel is just at the center of everything for all of them always, and I think they should start talking about something else. But from Colin Rugg, Meghan Kelly releases a short video clip of Charlie Kirk apparently telling Tucker Carlson to go max at the Israel topic at a TPUSA event. The video appears to confirm Carlson's previous claim that Kirk told them to go all the way on Epstein and Israel. I was recently going through some old pictures to find one of me and Charlie, and I knew he took at that event.
Yeah, and I don't know if this clip actually had the behind the scenes clip. There was another clip I meant to grab. I think I didn't grab it. But yeah, everything Tucker kind of says right here was confirmed because I did watch that other clip.
Even though we don't have it.
Epstein clearly had contact with Israeli intelligence and American intelligence and French intelligence, but the only one you're not allowed to talk about is Israeli intelligence. But it seemed true to me, and I had done some work on that. I knew a bunch of people pretty close to that story, so I thought that. And I said that to Charlie, and I said, but I'm not going to say that because I don't want to make your donors mad. I know it's just going to be like an endless flurry of text telling you to stop or you're going to lose a bunch of funding. And he looked at me, I'll never forget it, and said, go all the way. Do it. Go all the way. I said, man, a lot of things I can talk about. I don't need to talk about that. And he said, do it. So I did it.
And here's the thing, Stu. I was recently going through some old pictures to find one of me and Charlie that I knew we took at that event. And not only did I find pictures of me and Charlie, but I found a video of me, Tucker, and Charlie speaking backstage right before Tucker went out. Tucker and I were talking. Charlie came over and interrupted for just a second. And you can hear him on this tape, which I've listened to many times. It's very clear on my phone, less clear here probably as we play it. But he says to Tucker, go Max. He interrupts the conversation because he has to say to Tucker something. And what was so important to him to tell Tucker was, go Max. Here it is. It's quick. It just happens to be on tape. And it backs up what Tucker said. And so I just think we need to be realistic. Charlie understood what was happening to the conservative movement over Israel. He probably understood it better than any of us because he absolutely loved Israel. And yet he represented and was of young people. He was young. That was his constituency. That's where he spent all of his time. And he knew that even on the right side of the aisle, they had turned and were turning on Israel. And knowing all of that, he told Tucker to go out there and do all the things Tucker did. Go Max, he said. Now, why did he do that? Because he knew there was a faction within the conservative movement that needed a voice. They needed somebody to put their thoughts and their complaints and their objections into words in a public setting and not just cede the whole argument to the other side, which has been dominating conservative thought and media forever. The Mark Levins of the world. And so it's one of the many reasons why I really object to this attempt to otherize, snuff out the voice of Tucker Carlson. Charlie knew exactly where Tucker stood on these issues and wanted him, and I quote, to go Max. The answer to what is happening right now on the conservative half of the aisle is not to silence Tucker, to diminish him to the point where he doesn't have followers. Not that that's possible, you lunatics, or to try to delegitimize Tucker.
And that being said, they just need to have the debate out in public. I think the Israel side of the issue thinks they're going to lose if they have the debate. There's no guarantee of that. You put the best ideas forward. If conservatives do decide to go forward and put America first and stop funding foreign wars, foreign governments, and Israel's on the wrong side of that, it needs to be debated in public. The problem is if it's debated in public, they might come to a conclusion of that issue. And I don't think Israel's going to be on the right side. So maybe Israel is thinking we're going to lose that debate if we have it. It's best if we just try to stop the debate before it happens. They've already lost the left. They're losing the young people on the right with that issue. They want to try to hang on to the little support that they have left in America, I think.
And mainly on this topic, I just agree with Meghan Kelly completely. Stop trying to censor the ones that want to say X, Y, and Z. That is not what has built the MAGA or America First or whatever you want to call it movement. I hate the word movement. But at the same time, I think both sides are losing by just focusing on Israel. Just have the debate, decide what you want to decide, and shut up about it because everything has become Israel, Israel, Israel. And that is also losing a lot of support from people that are just disinterested and want to move forward and not just focus everything on damn Israel.
Well,
Everything is Israel.
A lot of people are trying to have the debate. I was watching an hour debate last night about this issue. It was Alex Jones and Dinesh D'Souza had a debate. It was very interesting. They were, they kind of don't have a dog in the fight, but they gave both sides of the argument so the people could hear it. I think the America First side is really trying to pressure for debate on this issue. The other side is just shutting down and trying to ignore it or censor on this issue. It's just best to have the debate in general. After watching the debate between Alex Jones and Dinesh D'Souza, though, Israel didn't come out completely bad on it. They actually gave good talking points on it. I think there is a way to defend Israel within the debate, but you're going to have that debate. The more you try to censor, the more you're going to lose. You may lose without even taking a shot at defending yourself or debating.
And that is a problem. The debate needs to happen. The people talking needs to happen. And the conspiracies and blaming everybody and blaming this on that and blaming that on this. As we've mentioned with Base Camp, they actually did a deep dive into Israeli financing, but also the Catholics financing a lot of things in the United States, and both sides didn't end up looking so good. But it is the lack of information, and if you don't get both sides to talk to each other, then both sides will continue to try to bolster their arguments and make wilder and wilder claims, while the regular public just tunes out because we're just sick and tired of it. As I mentioned, Brett Cooper has come out against all of this and said, Gen Z just wants to talk about America and what's happening with America. Donald Trump is trying to, give away our future and give us all just free things for now. And yet the conversation continues to revolve around Israel.
Yeah, it's very interesting. The people that are making the best talking points on Israel's behalf isn't Israel themselves, isn't Ben Shapiro and others. They are completely avoiding at all costs, and it doesn't look good. Just have the debate, Ben. Ben's a good debater. Matt Walsh is a good debater. A lot of these people are good debaters. It's not like they're not capable of debating.
And Steven Crowder has tried to come out and do something about it. He says there's a civil war on the right now, friendly and unfriendly fire. This is a fight for the soul of the country. Maybe just focus on the damn country. Ben Shapiro, Tucker Carlson, and Mark Levin, Candace Owens. I'm inviting all of you on the show, conversation or debate, however you want to do it. There needs to be neutral territory here. Balls in your court. Balls are flying all over the place right now. Nobody seems to be one.
Well, and this could be a huge win for the conservative movement right now. Debate is the area the conservatives really came up with alternative media. Young men and women both are watching it. It allows you to get the best points forward to the general public. We're seeing Andrew Wilson come in with a special debate platform called World War Debate, where he's bringing the best debaters from around the world, and he's kind of bringing debate to a whole new level. This is really an opportunity for the conservative movement to not only have this debate, but to create better platforms for debate, because right now it's just a bunch of people on Zoom and the audio's weird and stuff. Make live debate events again, and it's going to be really leaning into the conservative movement's strength.
But also to show civility, conservative movement strength, and also maybe honor Charlie Kirk, which is one of the things he was trying to do. And that way you can also get the Democrats to continue their own internal civil war that they're having between the ultra-progressives and the common sense Democrats who are just leaving in droves as well.
Look, as of right now, this moment, I believe still, Ben Shapiro, Mark Levin, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens are all trending. And it is just a bunch of friendly and in some cases unfriendly fire. It's a civil war in the right.
And it's just not those names, but those are the biggest names in alternative media right now. You bring them in an all-star, you bring them into an all-star debate event, and you surround them with other unknown debaters to really rise their platforms as well. It could be a new surge in alternative media platforms, debate platforms. I mean, it could be a resurgence of populism within the conservative movement, and they need it right now more than ever because of people like Mandani really bringing populism to the left. I don't like him, but I got to admit he was successful in the last election.
Right now. And I'll tell you, that's really honestly a fight for the soul of the country. And what I mean by that is the left has no soul. We know that. It is a soulless succubus. And so whatever moves forward as the right wing, the conservative, the populist, the MAGA movement is going to determine the soul of this country. And I've been around here, certainly doing this kind of a show, the longest, been on YouTube since 2009. I've had Ben Shapiro on the show many times. I've been on Tucker Carlson's show back. He was a host in Fox and Friends Weekends many times. We've crossed streams with Candace Owens. I've had Mark Levin on the show. I'd like to invite every single one of them, Ben Shapiro, Mark Levin, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, on the show for a conversation, for a debate, however you guys want to do it. because I think there does need to be some neutral territory here. And I think that this idea of each side on the right not wanting to platform the other side, that's not a thing anymore. Everyone has a platform in this argument, in this fight. Everyone has a platform, and we should be the wing of ideas, of discussion. I think that some tactics lately have been underhanded. I think some people have been less than straightforward. I think there may.
And yeah, I don't think Steven Crowder's platform is the best platform. He may be just trying to help himself out here. I think having a massive live event and having it restreamed on each individual massive creator's platform would be absolutely huge. And don't put even allow people to stream it on smaller platforms and don't copyright strike them and things like that. It could be a huge event. Like I said, World War Debate is Andrew Wilson's big debate live show he's trying to have, but something like that brings the best debaters, and especially on the one issue everybody's trying to avoid debating right now, would be fantastic.
Maybe some bad actors, not necessarily of those in positions of authority who I've mentioned, but those who are following them. I'll tell you this, Ben Shapiro is wrong about a lot. He's also right about quite a bit. Mark Levin is wrong about a lot. He's right about quite a bit. I think his approach right now is really wrong in the way he's dealing with it. Tucker Carlson has some pretty strong ideas. He's also wrong about a lot, in my opinion. Candace Owens, you know that we disagree more than we agree on approach and on the decision to almost exclusively attack those on the right. For example, I think that Schumer, I think that Brian Stelter is far more harmful to America. I think that legacy media is far more harmful to America than Ben Shapiro or Tucker Carlson. You could say the same for Mark Levin and Candace Owens. So I don't know why all of these attacks are just going to each other.
That's good. You know, the more I think about it, just having a massive live event and create an organization from that, and then continue that as an online platform after. The first major event would be obviously with all these big content creators, but then get young people from colleges, high schools to come and debate, and that would energize the youth of the conservative movement again.
Speaking of the future of the conservative movement, well, Michael Knowles has some ideas about what to do. Michael Knowles tells Tommy Lauren that J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio should run as incumbents in 2028, basically have them run as incumbents because this is only the second time we've had a non-consecutive second term. They can have a lot of the advantage of incumbents.
Now, I completely disagree with this thought. I do like Michael Knowles. I can't support J.D. Vance, but J.D. Vance is going to have to show that he's America first or a populist first. He has those streaks in him, but putting somebody like Marco Rubio on the ticket, which is a traditional neocon, and is really the cancer within the Trump movement right now. J.D. Vance, if he wants to run, needs to either align with RFK Jr. or Tulsi Gabbard. That would be the best picks for him.
And Marco Rubio, that's why a lot of conservatives in Mexico like him, because he is a giant rhino.
This is a non-consecutive second term, meaning people elected Trump knowing that he was only going to have one term, and the vice president was therefore going to matter a lot more. In many ways, I think the Republicans have already selected J.D. Vance as the heir apparent. President Trump has suggested on Air Force One that Vance and Rubio should run as a ticket. Rubio is probably the next most likely guy to be the nominee. Mm-hmm. Don't even have them run against each other. Basically have them run as incumbents, which, because this is only the second time we've had a non-consecutive second term, the other one was Grover Cleveland, because of that, they could have a lot of the advantages of and there are plenty of governors and senators and other people who are to get the nom. This is basically going to be Trump crowning a successor. It's just where we are. This is a non-consecutive...
That's what used to happen in Mexican
I don't
politics.
think it's going to be Trump crowning a successor at this point. We're seeing a major divide in the conservative movement. It's going to be very interesting to see who Steve Bannon backs and supports, because he was the architect of the 2 winning runs from Trump. He was the one that gave Trump all of his fundamental beliefs that he ran on.
Well, he might end up supporting himself if he does decide to run, if Steve Bannon decides to run as the next one.
It's going to be very interesting. I mean, putting Rubio, I think if you put Rubio with Vance at this point, it could absolutely maybe destroy J.D. Vance and like literally cut off half the conservative movement. It's not that they don't like JD Vance. It's they have questions about JD Vance and his connections with Palantir, but JD Vance is willing to answer those straightforward, but he needs to quell those questions with who his vice presidential candidate is. And if he puts Rubio there, half the conservative movement's not going to trust him. The other half would definitely trust him.
But just in general, I mean, the Republicans do have to do something because, especially after this small election we saw with Mamdani winning, but also for the upcoming midterms, Mark Mitchell, who I had the pleasure of being on WDW Pro with, sends a message to the Republican Party.
Oh, I told you we had this clip on here because, I recognized him as well from your appearance on WDW Pro.
What happens is when Trump wins an election, he convinces a higher proportion of the under 40 votes to turn it out for him than we've ever seen before. Other Republicans say, oh, look at us. But let's hear it from him.
No, and I don't necessarily agree with everything he's saying here, but I do agree that there is a major divide in the conservative movement right now.
Mm-hmm. And if they continue to have that divide there, it's not going to be good for them, any of them.
They could easily either bring it together or have one victor in this divide by having this massive debate event.
Because of populist socialism and or communism starts to ramp up, like we saw with Mamdani, if more people are bringing those ideas forth, then the Democrats will have more of a chance.
Well, Mamdani can't win on a national stage because he wasn't born in the United States, but AOC and Bernie Sanders are in the same sliver and the same ideology, and they're going to have Mamdani crisscrossing the country promoting their campaign. The left is a real threat, and if you don't think it is, because I was kind of discarding it after the last election, watch what's going to happen in the midterms. I don't think the conservatives may not win the midterms. And also that goes into what you were saying with the filibuster. If Trump takes away the filibuster, that takes about 3 or 4 months right now. And then if they have the midterms and the Democrats win the midterms, he can't even really use that filibuster. So if he's going to take away the filibuster, he has to wait to after the midterms. But there's a big question, can they even win the midterms with the rift that's happening and the rise of left populism right now?
What I found is that I have my finger on the pulse of where the politics of America is going right now, and it is not going towards conservatism. Right. Conservatism has basically become the luxury value set that DC Republicans love to convince themselves will win hearts and minds finally this time. And everybody knows after we see zero action out of the Republican Party that it's basically just a grift job, just a donor harvesting operation, basically. Well, what do the youth want? What happens is when Trump wins an election, he convinces a higher proportion of the under 40 vote to turn out for him than we've ever seen before. All the Republicans say, oh, look at us, we're so great. We just, we won the youth vote because Republicans are great. And it's like, no, these people are not conservative and they hate you. Right. They only voted for Trump to give him a chance of fixing America, and you're screwing it up. And so I look at these people, even the ones that say they support Trump are overwhelmingly supporting socialist policies. And, that's wild. That's new. These people want major industries nationalized. They want excess wealth distribution. They just want America fixed, and they don't care how it's done. And so I think
and it is that point. The young people just want America fixed. Same as here in Mexico. The young people just want Mexico fixed, and they will vote for whoever seems to know how to do that and will do it in a different way that has been done. So if the Republicans continue to try to hamstring, and the more rhino people and figures like Ben Shapiro, like Mark Levin, continue to try to use censorship, for example, or quench debate or even new ideas from coming through, which is what made MAGA and America First such a powerful movement, then they're just going to continue losing if they continue listening to the voices and the donors, as Mark says here.
Well, yeah, and things aren't fixed overnight. And Trump, we have to remember before Trump how it was and where the state of the world was. He has been doing a lot of good things. It takes time. There are a lot of people working against him behind the scenes, not only nationally, but globally. They are setting traps for him, starting wars for him, doing a lot of different things. I understand America First wants him to focus on America, but a lot of his international policy issues are intertwined with issues within America, like tariffs and things like this. He needs time, but he also has to realize he has to play to his base. He has to play to his MAGA supporters and stop going for corporate interest. He's trying to please both sides, and he's pleasing nobody.
There's this aspect of Trump support that really gets overlooked, which has been like young, angry online men that have been the butt of American society. And these people are not reading William F. Buckley. They want a strong man. They want things fixed. And unfortunately, they've been around for 10 years. They haven't really seen a lot of stuff get fixed. And now all of a sudden, it's like, well, Trump came in. He was wrecking the government. Everybody loved it. And then that stopped. And what happened? Well, probably the Uniparty killed Doge.
Donald Trump was getting a 60% approval rating of under 40 voters. That's just like insane. That's literally nutso. And now where is it? It's 35%. And who do those people like now? They like Mamdani. So you have this core voter though, and like the keyboard warriors and the 4chan folks and all these people have always been there, and they've always been a pariah. And I come out and explain to the society that they don't want Republicans. They just want you to fix things. And these people are important. And what do I get? I got 300 DMs of people from like mostly Gen Z, but some millennials who are like, listen, I give Republicans a chance. I'm so demoralized. And some of these are just brutal. I'll just read one. I'll join the club here. Completely done with MAGA and Trump. The federal government could freeze assets of illegals to
blah, blah, blah.
Okay,
But,
now-
and that is the opinion. Again, as I mentioned, Brett Cooper had a video out, I think it was today or yesterday, speaking specifically for that. And Brett Cooper has become a voice for Gen Z, same as Isabel Brown. And a lot of the younger MAGA people and MAGA figures have been continuing to speak about this, especially with the 50-year mortgage plan thing and the 15-year car loans that are coming out that are not going to help do what Trump was supposed to do.
Okay, we have to remember Steve Bannon was in the first administration and he was in the most recent. What happened after the first administration? He was side by side with Donald Trump. And what he did every day was making sure they were following through with election promises. And then he was quickly pushed out by Susie Wild. Now, Susie Wild has Trump's ear and she's pushing corporate interests. It was a very good strategy by Bannon to make sure they were following through on election promises. And what were their promises and what were they doing every day to try to accomplish those promises? Now, I will admit Steve Bannon is not perfect by any means. He is very horrible at appointing personnel, and that was the big dagger in the first Trump administration. That being said, it is a good idea to go back to your base, go back to your election promises, especially before the midterms come.
And speaking of Bannon, from Bannon's War Room, he says Trump's not perfect. He's an imperfect instrument, but one infused by divine providence.
And he is the populist movement in conservatism. So whoever he backs in 2028, I think.
And again, he might back himself. It might be himself that wants to run if there's nobody else.
And he, like I said, he does have flaws and he is a China hawk. I would be very scared if he got elected that he would go to war with China.
Well, I like that. But...
That being said, I do like Bannon's populist ideals, and he does know how to win elections based upon those ideals.
Did I mention that Trump's not perfect? He's an imperfect instrument, but he's an instrument infused by divine providence. If you had not had him and you didn't have him today, you wouldn't have anything. And I realize there's some days and some comments that get you all worked up. We're here to calm you down and say, let's keep, this is 12 o'clock high. You're on a bombing run. Stay focused. Don't be getting off, don't be getting off the main event here. Did I mention that Trump's not?
Okay, and that being said, the midterms are coming up. The next election, Trump is the best thing we have right now. I understand he is dealing with a lot of issues. He was the one to take on the globalists, take on this full force. And behind him can come another populist movement, whether it's J.D. Vance or Steve Bannon or somebody else. But we need to continue to support Trump because there are a lot of people working against him. I know everything he does isn't perfect, especially when we look at the Epstein files. I really hope he releases those files. But if Trump falls and the Democrats win in 2028 and they freeze him out in the midterms because they win the midterms too, the future of the world is not going to look bright. A digital ID, a digital currency, a social credit score globally, mass censorship across the globe. All these countries are starting to bring in censorship with their new censorship regimes, whether it's the EU, Australia, Canada, even Mexico. Donald Trump is currently trying to get these countries to change those policies, but it's going to really depend on whoever comes after Trump. And if it's not a conservative or it's somebody like a Marco Rubio, it's not going to look good.
And Walker asks, Guy, the neocons are like the progressives in the Republican Party, or what are neocons?
Neocons are are traditional conservatives that kind of took over the conservative party. And that's why every single conservative president always wants war until Trump came along. And then he was a populist president. Neocons is the war movement within the conservative party. They represent the military and industrial complex. They always want forever wars. Good examples of this would have been Dick Cheney and George Bush. But there's a lot of there a lot of people within the Uniparty, so Democrats as well, support the neocons because it benefits them to have these never-ending wars.
Benefits them financially, and
Not just
sometimes,
financially,
sometimes
yeah.
during elections.
And what you're going to see is if Trump loses this tariff battle because the Supreme Court gets in and he's not able to end the filibuster, and these tariffs are taken away. Tariffs are the opportunity to avoid war at all costs. He's waging economic war and trying to put America first again without having to go to war with China. If they take that from him, I'm scared about the spiral that may happen and the desperation even Trump may go to. He may start a war just to keep America on top, and that's not what we want to see. The tariffs are the best way to avoid war at this point.
And someone that was doing quite a bit of wrong and fumbles, but has now come up as someone that does have debate and does encourage that debate from Timcast News. Piers Morgan said he'd like to have Nick Fuentes on his show for an uncensored interview, arguing it would be interesting to challenge Fuentes directly on his past statements, which is what should be done.
Okay, and this is the perfect thing because Piers Morgan loves to grill people on his show. He's already made it clear he does not like Nick Fuentes, so he would absolutely grill him. I think Fuentes would do it, and then I would want to see what people like Ben Shapiro would say to Piers Morgan.
Mm-hmm.
My criticism was not that he platformed him. Tucker he's right. He can platform anybody he likes. It's one of the biggest platforms in the world. My criticism was, why didn't you give him as hard a time as he gave me?
I think that's fair. I think that's fair I'm doing that. But so you would house Nick Fuentes?
Well, I think in light of all the controversy about him, it'd be quite interesting to get him on my show and actually do an uncensored number on him where I go after him about a lot of the stuff he said on the record. I think now it's...
You would lose your Jewish donors so if you do that. So I just want to prepare you for it.
I don't care about things.
You're going to lose that.
I never care about...
The fact that he would say you would lose your Jewish donors, it probably happened to PBD when he had him on. That being said, when Piers Morgan had Andrew Tate on, he absolutely grilled him for 2 interviews straight. And Piers Morgan stopped actually trying to go extremely hard at Andrew Tate because he was getting destroyed, not just by Andrew Tate, but by a lot of people in the comments as well.
And also, Pete Hegseth has been speaking about the Department of War and the direction that they want to take it now with the Trump administration. And there's a short clip here of someone trying to grill him on that, but him getting one over. Oh, it doesn't want to play.
Because if it were, you would be keeping these women in. Instead, you are the one injecting culture wars into the military, and it's at the detriment of our military readiness and national security. Now, General Kane, I'd like to turn to you.
So to be clear, these are men who think they're women.
These are women. I'm happy to educate you on
But these are men.
on trans
and so
issues at
what we've
time.
identified is that there's mental health issues with that belief system.
I'd like to turn to
that
General
are detrimental to readiness, and that's the determination that we've made and that we stand behind. Gender dysphoria.
And so you don't, because if it were.
And that was a great
that is one good
response.
thing.
And she wanted to cut him off and not let him speak, just like you're trying to do to me now.
Shut up. But that is one good thing of the Trump administration, that they have been going kind of up against the culture wars and winning in some cases, but they should focus on that as well.
Especially in the
And the
military.
economy.
You have to have military readiness.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're going to be a joke and a laughingstock amongst the world. The fact that they let the military go in the complete opposite direction under Biden really put the United States in an extremely weak and vulnerable position. Okay.
Should we continue? Because we still have a lot of things to go
let's
through.
continue.
Sorry, our dog again.
He absolutely hates when we do the show.
Yes.
I told you stop petting her so much, stop loving her so much, because she doesn't know what to do.
Sorry for loving our
when
dog.
we're not paying attention to her for an hour or two.
But also regarding the Department of War and just wars in general from Baron Trump, but news, not actual Baron Trump. President Trump just announced America will start celebrating the wars they won, calling it Victory Day. I saw France, the UK, even Russia celebrate Victory Day, but we're the ones who won those wars.
And a lot of people don't know Russia and the United States were actually allies in that war in order to defeat Germany at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And Russia had more than any other country. They had between 23 and 40 million dead. That was 10 times more than any other country.
and calling Victory Day for World War I Victory Day. You know, I was recently at an event and I saw France was celebrating Victory Day, but we didn't. And I saw France was celebrating another Victory Day for World War II. And other countries were celebrating. They were all celebrating. We're the one that won the wars. And I said, from now on, we're going to say Victory Day for World War I and World War II. And we could do for plenty of other wars, but we'll start with those two. Maybe someday somebody else will add a couple of more because we won a lot of good ones. But when I see other countries celebrating Victory Day, I watched it. I watched UK, I watched Russia. They were celebrating Victory Day, World War II. And I said, we got to have a Victory Day. Nobody even talked about it in our country. But from now on, we're going to be celebrating Victory Day for World War I, for World War II, and frankly, for everything else. Under the Trump administration, we're restoring the pride and the winning spirit of the...
And this is just a great policy in general. Be proud of your history. Be proud
Stop
of
changing
your
history as well.
Be proud of your military. Otherwise, you're going to demoralize the country, like what happened under the Biden administration, taking away the poppy, raising the flag in the UK is supposed to be a bad thing when it should be, the flag should be a sense of pride. World War II and your victory on that day should also be a sense of pride.
However, Trump has been doing some missteps, especially with that interview he had with Laura Ingraham and on the Ingraham angle and other things like, again, the 50-year mortgage, but also regarding H-1B visas and students and what could come with that. As I've mentioned multiple times, I think as well, a lot of the Chinese students that go into the U.S. have been deported during the deportations because of ties to spying or sending intelligence over to China that China should not have.
These are the simple policies you can correct to really quell your base or show your base you're delivering on your promises. You know they don't want, you know your base and MAGA supporters don't want this in general.
Stephen Crowder says, keep in mind 600,000 Chinese students means 600,000 potential spies. Inflated tuition, decreased opportunities for American students. Training our primary geopolitical threat in fields most crucial to our national security. And that is how a lot of the advancements that China has made were made by stealing from America and Canada and a bunch of other countries.
Half of the students from all over the world that are coming into our country destroy our entire university and college system. I don't want to do that.
I wouldn't lose any.
And don't forget, MAGA was my idea. MAGA was nobody else's idea. I know what MAGA wants better than anybody else.
It was 100% Steve Bannon's idea. He tried to recruit 3 people. Trump was the last one. He didn't think Trump would be on board. He gave Trump his entire platform. The only thing that Trump was aligned on originally that was MAGA was China. He was a China hawk, just like Steve Bannon. And they were both pro-tariff. But everything else in the framework of modern day American populism, Trump didn't create. Steve Bannon did. And that's why he won when he came back for the second election.
And MAGA wants to see our country thrive.
So let me just be really clear with you. Chinese students not only don't deserve this and we don't benefit from it, they're a national security threat. So let me give you a few examples here. Check the references linked in the description. At U of M, you had many instances of students trying to smuggle in crop fungus. That doesn't seem like it has a place in the science lab. Again, at U of M, you had that student charged for illegally voting and his vote still counted. And again, at U of M, 5 students were charged with spy activities at Camp Grayling. Again, most of these are the Chinese. Chicago, Chinese electrical engineering student there was convicted for spying for the CCP. At UCLA, there was a math student who transferred sensitive tech to the PLA. And then, of course, you have Swalwell's favorite, Fang Fang, the one he was not banging, just to be clear, not having sex with the Chinese spies, Eric Swalwell. There's no record of it. There's no proof of it. Eric Swalwell has not slept with Chinese spies and still seems to hold office. I just want to be very, very clear. I think we're covered by my...
Okay, yeah, and they're their biggest geopolitical opponent. They're creating a whole new financial system that is set to rival the United States with these bank vaults filled with gold that they're going to secure the yen against. I mean, if there's one country you don't want to continue to help in any way, shape, or form because you want to avoid war at all costs and you want to wage war economically on them, it would be China. So.
And Walker says, so the USA is going to have one more day than Russia because the USA won one more world war than Russia.
Well, actually, Russia and the United States won that one together. And the U.S. completely funded Russia in that war. But
the other one.
Russia supplied the manpower.
The other one.
Oh, the other one.
From Grace Chung MBI, Bannon says you have to play Smash Mouth. Lutnick completely botched the H-1B visa explanation to the president. If half the college system collapses without foreign students, so be it. Open it up to American students, black, Hispanic, white, all of it. If you're a U.S. citizen, your kid gets a shot. They're just as intelligent, just as hardworking. And yes, Trump, that clip of Trump saying that they do need people that are foreigners with H-1B visas because they have more knowledge was not very
well, and I do understand that Bannon is a China hawk, and maybe Trump got him out of the administration because he doesn't want to go to war with China. That being said, Bannon knows the promises he made, and these are the kind of promises Bannon was kind of holding Trump's feet to the fire, and I don't think Trump liked that. After they got rid of Bannon, it was Susie Wild put in that place, and they're going away from what the populist beliefs of MAGA are.
This is what you have to do. You have to play hardball and you have to play smash mouth. And if our college system, I don't know what Lutnick, who completely botched the HB1 visa explanation to the President of the United States, I don't understand what he or the Department of Education is explaining to the President of the United States and showing you the math about the college system here. Yes, the foreign students pay more, but if that's just to pay a bunch of tenured professors in these woke universities, because they're all woke except for a handful, to pay their tenured salaries and retirement, no thanks. And if half the system would collapse, you'd let foreign students, number one, let's open it up. Look at the acceptance rates. Let's open it up to American students. Let's open it up to African Americans, Hispanics, whites, all of it. If you're a U.S. citizen, boom, your kid's going to get a shot. Guess what? They're just as intelligent, just as hardworking. Just give them a shot. I'd rather give them a shot than somebody from overseas. Hey, full stop. Does that make me a nativist? Does that make me a xenophobe? It makes whatever. Hey, if that makes me anything, I don't give a tinker's damn. I care about American citizens. I care about the kids of American citizens. I don't care about the Chinese Communist Party. I don't care about the elites of Europe sending their kids here. I just don't. Once every one of those bills, like the HB1s, they can't show any technical expertise the foreigners have. They don't. It's all a scam to suppress and destroy American workers. And whoever gives President Trump, I'd like to see the business model that they're giving President Trump, the financial model of the university system. And hey, if 10% of the universities and colleges in this country are not going to make it because you're not taking foreign students and inundating it with foreign students, then see the time to rethink your model or let capitalism work.
And you're seeing this new America First platform being built, and it's really on the original principles of MAGA that Trump kind of has slowly moved away from over the last 10 years. And Steve Bannon is the one with Tucker Carlson and a lot of others really saying this was the original MAGA platform, and now it's the America First platform.
And it's not that I am America first and that's why I like Trump. I am each country first, Mexico first, Argentina first, El Salvador first, etc. That looks to be the winning plan, and to stop the globalization and the globalist movement from continuing to take over.
Yeah, stop weakening your own countries, whether it's Mexico, Canada, or the United States, for the benefit of countries overseas because you want to be a globalist.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of, from Eric Doherty, breaking in an incredible moment, J.D. Vance, who just went full America First, says it's time for Appalachia to no longer be left behind.
Well, and this is why we love J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance has really, really hard strengths of the populism and the MAGA movement. He's extremely anti-war and things like this. The thing is, he's going to have to be the one that publicly and privately pushes Trump in the right direction, because too many people like Marco Rubio and Susie Wild have Trump's ear. If he does that in 2028, he is going to be the candidate, especially if he has a good vice presidential selection like a Tulsi Gabbard or an RFK.
And aside from where the funding, some of the funding for J.D. Vance may have come from and what ties he does have that backwoods Americana life as well, and his whole life story is also important, and I think he needs to start speaking a bit more about that as well.
Well, yeah, he does have connections to Palantir, and he's addressing those head on, and he's taking questions from college students that are very hard, and he's answering them live. So that there's no more you can really ask for him at this point. So pause it. I really hope Steve Bannon backs J.D. Vance and they don't put Marco Rubio as his running mate. Mm-hmm. A Tulsi Gabbard or an RFK would be a shoo-in for J.D. Vance.
Populism. And you want to talk about people being pissed off. Well, yeah, people are pissed off when they don't have good jobs. And people are pissed off when things disappear and move overseas. And people are pissed off when they feel like other countries are being prioritized over the United States of America. And all of that is part of the populist resentment of the past 20 or 30 years in American politics. You know what really pisses people off? When they realize that their loved ones are dying much sooner than everybody else. And that is a big part of the story of what's going on in Appalachia and why I think so many people in Appalachia feel left behind. I mean, my story, obviously, it's been, like I said, I'm like a golden boy. The things have just worked out for me in this really incredible way. I feel so lucky and so grateful for it. But I also feel a certain sense of guilt because there are a lot of people who grew up in families like mine who haven't had an easy life and who haven't had all this economic opportunity and who haven't had, a person that they've fallen in love with and they've been able to sort of build a stable, nice family like me and Usha have been able to build. And that gives me a sense of purpose because I want those people to have the same opportunities that I've had. But it also gives me a great sense of anger because we never should have gotten to the point that we are today. And the reason that we have is because of failed leadership, and it's failed leadership over generations. And by the way, you talk about Appalachia, you were talking about people who, though they don't have much, would take the shirt off their back and give it to a complete stranger because that's what you do. If you go back to America's biggest wars, World War I, World War II, Vietnam, which are the counties that filled their draft quotas with volunteers instead of with draftees? It's very often the parts in deep Appalachia where you've got grinding poverty, but you've also got this incredible love of country. So if any place in this country deserves not to be left behind, it's Appalachia. But on the public health stuff in particular, the numbers don't look good. And it's one of the reasons why I'm such a big supporter of what you're doing, because these are people who deserve to live better, healthier lives, but they really have been left behind by this country's leadership.
And he knows how to talk, speak, and debate. It's going to be a real treat to watch him on the stage engaging with other political opponents, whether they're from the conservative movement or it's Gavin Newsom or AOC. I think he's absolutely going to destroy him. But it's very important he signals to the base that he has the right vice presidential candidate. Otherwise, they're not going to trust him. There's already questions about him with Palantir. He's addressed those questions. He's quelled those enough for me that I'm willing to put support behind him. I just hope Steve Bannon and the American First Movement does too. But in order to get that support, it's going to have to not be Marco Rubio as his running mate.
And he needs to start going to the gym again. Sorry.
He's trying to save the country.
He had lost a bit of weight and now he put it all back on. Speaking of health, be healthy.
What's all that McDonald's he's eating with Trump?
Like you do with me.
Thank you.
I eat McDonald's and then you eat all my.
I have a bite.
No, you eat all my nuggets.
I had 2 nuggets of 8, and that's all of them.
And
was a
most
10
of my fries.
Sorry, it was a 10-pack.
No, it was a 6. So I only ate 4.
So I had 2 and you had 4. So I ate all your nuggets.
Yes.
Well, I just won that debate.
From Timcast News, and this might be an answer as to where the stupid 50-year mortgage thing came from. For Trump, the White House is reportedly furious with housing investor Bill Pult, blaming him for advising President Trump to back a 50-year mortgage plan that sparked massive backlash. Officials say Pult pushed the idea directly to the president without proper vetting, blindsiding senior advisors. And it was a very stupid idea.
Yeah. And it's good that the administration is realizing this is a bad idea. And this is the thing. They do listen to the base, and the base pushed back really, really hard, and they got the message almost instantly. So if the base can just say Trump's not headed in the right direction, but rather say why he's not headed in the right direction, it's because he's appeasing corporate interest rather than his election promises he made in the run-up in his campaign. Bring Steve Bannon back in so you can realign your campaign with what you promised the voters.
But now we're heading over to RUMBLE because the rest of the stories are a little bit too spicy for YouTube. If you haven't subscribed or liked, please do so. We are trying to get to 1,000 subscribers here on YouTube. And we'll see you over at RUMBLE so we can speak freely. Same channel name over there. See you in a second.
Let me log into RUMBLE.
Rumble. You can say it.
Oh, I can say it.
I didn't say thank you to Walker for all your comments.
Well,
thank you to Walker.